The idea is simple. Read grass and not guys. What if you just looked at where the open space was on the field pre-snap, cross-reference that with where your routes are headed, and then target the route that's running into the open area of the field? Could this become the ultimate form of take what the defense gives you? I was a little bit skeptical when I first heard this theory, because what if the defense rotates their players and closes some grass that was initially open, and now you're throwing the ball into a contested area because of your pre-snap diagnosis of the defense? But what if the problem isn't that defenses are too complicated, but instead it's the way that quarterbacks were taught to read them? Pre-snap, we know the Colts are in some sort of zone coverage. It could either be a cover 6, quarter, half, or a cover 3 cloud with the corner playing in the flat. The exact scheme doesn't matter too much right now. Just know that the defense has 2 guys committed to this defensive left half of the field. The Dolphins are going to call a bench concept, with levels coming from the backside. The first read is the out route, which is what he wants to throw considering that it's 3rd down and 5. So if the linebacker expands with this shallow route, it should open up a wide open window for this dig because it's pulling the linebacker out of the middle of the field. So Tua sees the linebacker expand with the shallow and lets this ball fly to the dig, except for a D lineman drops into coverage and intercepts this ball. Defenses aren't letting you go 1, 2, 3 in your read progressions anymore, and you can literally see Tua clicking through each one of these routes in his progression. He didn't make a bad read. He made the right read for a look that just wasn't there anymore. But what I'm about to break down for you could change the way that you view the sport of football for the rest of your life. Now, before we get started, I'm a D1 athlete here at the University of Wyoming. I've been here for 4 years, I've learned 3 different playbooks, and I've played on both sides of the ball. So it's fair to say that I know a thing or two about the X's and O's of the game. Hey man, I'm about to head back to my apartment so I can draw some of this up for you guys. See if this transition works. I've never done one of these, but I'm gonna go like this. Yes, sir. After watching this play, I wanted to see if the issue was more than just one bad rep. Through the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, there were 401 passes completed for 20 yards or more, and a shocking 261 of these landed right where the defense was weak pre-snap. This means that about 65% of the time, the open grass read progression method actually works. For example, the Texans are playing a cover 2, and all this means is that they're going to have 2 safeties deep, and then the whole shot areas are going to be open along with the middle of the field. The quarterback knows that he has a corner route that is headed directly to an open area of the field. So they use some play action, he buys some time in the pocket and delivers this ball. Next thing you know, the pass was completed in the exact same area that was left open pre-snap by the defense. However, I didn't want to skew the bell curve by only looking at the positive plays for the offense. So on top of the 401 plays, I also broke down every single interception within the same time period. There was 99 of them. It took me so long, so please like the video if you're enjoying this so far. For example, the Jags are going against the Panthers here, and all the deep areas are taken away pre-snap with the cover 4 shell. Now, the Jags are trying to get J.C. Horn to bite on this dig route underneath, and if he attaches to it, you can see that there is a ton of grass wide open for Travis Hunter to run into. Except for J.C. Horn is a veteran corner who knows better than to attach to the first thing that he sees. So an underthrown ball in combination with an insane play from J.C. Horn leads to this ball getting intercepted. But remember, before the play, we said that this deep area was not open pre-snap. So this idea of reading the grass and not the guys isn't incorrect, but it's just incomplete. Because on 65% of the times, yes, it did work. But that means that on 35% of plays, it's not nearly as intuitive. But in order to understand it, we're going to need a better understanding of defensive rules as opposed to just taking their alignments at face value. Let's look at this clip from Brock Bowers. He's going to run this little wheel route up the right sideline, and he ends up catching this ball at the 41-yard line. But going back to the start of the play, you can see that number 7 is clearly in an open hip stance, which takes this area away. What I realized is it's not always because of the defensive alignment that gets your receiver open. It's these concepts that are creating space for receivers to get open to get the ball. So let's look at a couple of the most basic route concepts in the sport of football, and we're going to figure out what they all have in common with each other. So this flood route with the out and the clear route from the outside, the running back going to the flat. Notice that this Z receiver is running a clear out route vertical. So any cornerback defender that would be standing here would expand with him over the top into the deep area, which opens it up for the Y to catch this ball right where he was standing. Or even on this dagger concept with a vertical from the F and a dig on the backside. This F receiver is just clearing out any deep defender so that way the X can come and catch the ball right where he left. It's almost as if the clear out route acts as a hedge against these open grass reads. So just in case it's not open pre-snap, you still have a chance to be able to get the ball to your desired receiver if you just throw it to him after the guy has already cleared out that section of the field. And then after that, it's just a question of can the quarterback stay alive in the pocket for long enough to be able to deliver the ball to his receiver. But there's one coverage in particular that goes against this logic entirely. It completely breaks our pattern and just turns every rep into somewhat of a coin flip. And that is, you guessed it, man-to-man coverage. And this is largely because a clear out route won't affect the man-to-man defender. At the top of the screen, there's open grass based off of all of the same alignment rules that we used earlier. And the receiver is going to have a curl route that runs directly into this open space. Now, the theory that we asked at the beginning of the video stated that if we were to overlay the routes with the open area of the field, we should just throw that every single time. But in this case, it was just man coverage and the DB made an outstanding play. That's all there is to it. Or look at this play from Travis Kelce, where they're going against man-to-man coverage. This linebacker ended up flying out with the running back, and that's what created this space for Travis Kelce to be able to get his hands on this ball. He stems this slant route outside and breaks it back in, only to not finish the play, drop the ball, and this one gets intercepted in a critical moment of the game. Man-to-man is a simple premise. Who's going to win their matchup between the wide receiver and the defensive back? So if you can somehow figure out that they're playing man-to-man defense before the ball is snapped, as a quarterback, you should just play your best matchup. Whoever your favorite wide receiver is, that's who the ball should go to. So the question becomes, how do you know if the defense is playing man or zone pre-snap? I wish that there was a concrete rule that I could give you to say that, hey, if you see this thing, it's going to result in man coverage. But the truth of the matter is that especially in higher levels of football, defenses are really good at disguising the picture. So I'm going to give you 4 clues that you can look for to try and identify man coverage. And if you get 2 of them, the odds of man coverage skyrocket. The first one is press man-to-man coverage all across the board. Especially when the nickel presses in the slot, this is by far the best indicator of man-to-man coverage. It's unrealistic to ask this press man-to-man safety to drop back and play some sort of zone over the top of this Z receiver. If both receivers were to run vertical and the safety has to midpoint these two, the key coaching point is to stay way over the top so that way you have time to react to wherever the quarterback decides to throw the ball. But with the nickel pressed, that's too far of a run for him to be successful. The second key is when defenses track motions. If we were to send this F receiver in motion all the way across the field, and he gets set up over here, and this defensive back follows him all the way across to the other side to still guard him man-to-man, that is another really big indicator of man-to-man coverage. Because the same way that the offense wants to isolate their best matchup on the perimeter and get the ball to them in man-to-man coverage, the defense also wants to have the best DBs matched up against the best receivers. So by using this tracking motion and making sure that their matchup stays set on the other half of the field, it's going to help them to play better man-to-man defense. Whereas if this defender were to bump the Y off and then he's guarding him, this could be a linebacker body for all I know because this is a tight end, and this F is usually a slot receiver in 11 personnel. So you wouldn't want a linebacker guarding a slot receiver. So that's why they track it all the way across the field and just play their matchups. Now remember that defensive coordinators are really good at their jobs, especially at high levels of football. So every once in a while, you're going to see a defender track a motion, but the coverage still ends up being a zone picture. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you see someone follow their man across the field and then it turns into a zone, just know that some serious mind tricks are going on. The third one is down and distance. On any 3rd and short, the defense is way higher likely to play man-to-man. Because let's say it's 3rd and short and the first down is right here at this red line. So if the offense were to run a concept here that spaces 5 guys out evenly across the field, this becomes an easy throw for the quarterback to put down the middle in between these 2 zone area defenders. The defense can't afford to give up a 2-yard gain on a sit route if it's 3rd and 1. And then the red zone has very similar logic to 3rd down as well. Because you just can't allow for the defense to find the open holes in the zone. It's not like it's 1st and 10 after a kickoff and the offense has 80 yards to go, so a 3-yard gain doesn't hurt. No, in the red zone, every yard matters, so teams are way more likely to play man-to-man coverage. But the reality is that zone coverage isn't as cut and dry as I initially thought it was either. Because it's so easy for an NFL quarterback to take advantage of this seam throw. So instead of this, teams are playing match, defense. And all this means is that if we have our cover 3 here, I tried to draw the colors similar to that of what you would see on like a Madden game, but I only had red, I didn't have a yellow, so excuse me for the red. But just know that these purple zones, if these 2 wide receivers were to run up the field into that hole shot area, just like we saw the Rams exploit versus the Texans, these purple zones are going to sink underneath and try and take away the passing window, so it's not as big as an open gap for the quarterback to be able to deliver this ball into the area. Now, just like every defense that exists in the sport of football, this match coverage system is going to have its own strengths and weaknesses. One of the biggest ones being that if this guy were to run out and guard this seam ball, all of a sudden he's not there to be able to help this corner underneath if he were to run a curl route. Even though cover 3 match is a zone defense, it's going to have some of the same man-to-man principles that we just talked about earlier. Because if this receiver on the right can win his matchup versus the corner, that's where the ball should go. Now I'm done talking about cover 3 match because the same thing happens in a lot of other zone coverages too. Let's just look at a cover 2 with 2 deep players on the field. So let's say the offense runs a speed out and a clear out on the outside. It is up to this deep half defender to guard this route man to man after it runs into his zone. So if the QB were to scramble and extend the play, and this guy were to go across the field and then whip back out and come back down to the ball, it is up to this guy to map him every single place that he goes. So the more we look at it, zone coverage plays as man-to-man in a lot more scenarios than we would initially have thought. So the question becomes, how does the offense use this to their advantage? This clip from the Eagles sums it up perfectly. The Eagles are going to have this double post concept on the right side of the field, and the Cowboys are matching this up with a cover 4 shell. Now remember that after a certain point, everyone has to play man-to-man in their zones because it's too deep down the field to try and pass it off. So even though this corner at the bottom of the screen is only responsible for 1/4 of the field on paper, he's going to have to run with this post almost to the middle of the field because the corner knows that the safety might get cleared out by another route using the same logic that he has to follow. This corner wasn't even in a bad position, it's just a good throw and a really good catch. But man, for it being cover 4, it looks a lot like man-to-man. It's so counterintuitive because you would think that cover 4 with 4 defenders deep would result in the fewest amount of explosive plays over the top. But in reality, if you run the right play concept at the right time, it just turns into isolated one-on-one shots. It might as well be man-to-man at that point. Alright, so I know I've thrown a lot at you guys. I've talked about reading the open grass and then throwing the ball into that spot, and then I also talked about trying to run man routes versus zone coverage, and sometimes it'll open up. But if so much of zone defense is going to end up being man-to-man, is it better for us to just read the body language of the defenders themselves? Now, this ties back to the spot earlier where I was talking about the open hip. Whenever a DB opens his hips, it's for one of 3 reasons. Number 1 is so he can match the speed of his wide receiver. This is going to happen on pretty much every deep route that exists. He's going to be in a back pedal, and then at a certain point, once the receiver breaks his cushion, he's going to have to kick open and open his hips to run with the receiver for the rest of the way. This is extremely typical and happens very often. Number 2 is to sink into a zone. So say the defense is showing a 1-high look, but then at the snap, instead of playing that, they're going to bail to a 2-deep coverage. To where he's playing cover 2, this safety is going to start with squared hips, and then on the snap, he's going to have to kick open and push as deep as he can. And this is important because you got to stay on top of everything, because if this receiver runs a go route down the field and you're just in a back pedal to get to this deep spot, there's a chance that he runs past you, and now all of a sudden there's no more deep help behind the deep half player. Now this is also pretty typical and pretty routine, but I want to emphasize this third one, because the third reason why a defensive back would have their hips open is to funnel the receiver into his help. So say that I'm the defensive back and I open up my hips like this to try and funnel you this way into my help that's standing over there. This is important to know because I am vulnerable in 2 different spots. One, I'm going to be vulnerable in front of me because you already have a leverage advantage. And if we go back to our grass reads from earlier, there's absolutely grass in between me and where my safety is at. So I have to respect any routes that break this way. But at the same time, my blind spot is also weak. So if the receiver were to run into my blind spot and then break out or anywhere behind me, I have no help over there. So I'm really stressed out in two different directions at the same time. The only advantage I have is that I can set a wall or for sure stay on top, like I discussed earlier, to make sure that you're keeping the same depth as the receiver. So in this Ravens vs. Browns game, you can see a really good example of this because number 25 is running with the motion and he's responsible for guarding this vertical stem. So using our rules from earlier, this position is cool if he's trying to funnel him to the help, but the only problem is he doesn't have help over there. There's nobody standing on the sideline of the field. So in which scenario should we trust the open grass that we see pre-snap? And in which scenario should we try and create it for ourselves with the concept? And when are we supposed to play man-to-man and try and beat them with our matchups? There's so many different ideas going on here. Maybe the method isn't to throw away the traditional read progression system altogether, but rather it's to rethink them because different methods work in different situations. Because if I'm a quarterback and I don't know what the coverage is, 65% of the time I should be able to look at the open spot on the grass, point to the route that's running there, and put the ball up and it should be a completion. I should be able to look at a defender in an open hip stance and know that if I have a route that's attacking his blind spot, it's going to be very hard for the defensive back to be able to stop that route. So here you can see that this cornerback at the bottom of the screen is in the open hip position. So when Matthew Stafford sees that he has an outbreaking route that's also attacking the DB's blind spot, he thinks that's an easy rhythm timing throw. Except for the Titans defensive coordinator told this linebacker to drop all the way to the sideline as if he knew this out route was coming before the play was even started. I say all of this because it's foolish to have one read progression strategy when there's so many different ways that the defense can try and guard you. You have to be able to adapt and have different strategies for different coverages. And I'm not sure what the exact way is. I got caught up watching the interceptions because I was trying to take things from these NFL players' games and put them into my game as well. I say all of this to say that the game of football is evolving. It really is a chess match that has to be won with strategy. Hey, but if you like this video, check out this one right here. It's about read progressions too, so it should be right up your alley. Love y'all. All glory to God, all glory to the King. Be easy, man.